I will be running for president of the United States of America.
Now, the internet has been going wild after that announcement by TYT's Uygur that he is running for president. Here are some of the reactions.
Boy, oh boy. We gotta talk about the biggest Looney Tune in the world in this video, and that is Uygur. Okay, the founder of the Young Turks, okay, the failing progressive news channel on YouTube, okay, because this guy's Trump derangement syndrome is so bad, it's so terrible, okay, he has a severe case that he has decided that he's going to run for president, even though clearly, constitutionally, he is not allowed to be president because he is not a natural born citizen, okay? He was not born here in the United States. However, he's challenging that, right? He's going to challenge this, okay? Even though he knows he's not eligible, he's going to challenge it, okay? He's going to run for president anyways because he's afraid, he's scared to death that Trump is going to beat Biden.
The other big problem everybody's talking about is he was born in Turkey. And he has a legal theory that, like, well, actually, it's not going to matter. Because I'm still allowed to run. But, you know, I think that the courts are just going to flatly disagree with him and be like, no, you say you have the right to run. And maybe there is some sort of legal theory that is more sound that you have. But at the same time, it's not always the case that the sound legal theory ends up winning. I mean, we saw this with what the Supreme Court tried to do with student loan debt reduction, where they slapped it down. Now, to Biden's credit, he then turned around and said, we'll do it a different way. We'll do it through the Higher Education Act. But they slap stuff down all the time for political reasons. And so for political reasons, they'll probably be like, yeah, you're not a natural-born American, so we're just going to say you can't run. So I think he's going to run into a legal issue, too. I think there will be lawsuits over it where they try to stop him. And then he also says, like, hey, I'm running. He says he's running to win, but then he also says, what I'm really running to do is get to like 20 or 25% of the vote and basically force other Democratic candidates in the race, because he's convinced there's no way that Joe Biden can win. And he thinks Trump is a legitimate threat to democracy, and he wants somebody who can defeat Trump to run. He doesn't want to roll the dice on Joe Biden again. Look, I understand that perspective, and I understand a lot of people feel like it's impossible for Joe Biden to win. But let's be clear, everybody was saying that in 2020 also, that Joe Biden can't win. And then you know what? He won.
Yeah, I think James' biggest hurdle is the fact that he was not born in the United States. And so...
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah, unfortunately, the community notes under his announcement tweet reads, Uygur was born in Istanbul, Turkey, and is therefore ineligible to hold the office of President of the United States, which requires the candidate to be a natural-born citizen. Cenk claims that the Supreme Court would overturn this requirement in a, quote, slam dunk victory. So he has his own legal theory as to why he should be able to be president. I frankly think it's a silly rule. I don't think that should be the bar to him or anybody else being president. I know that Republicans were dealing with this when Arnold Schwarzenegger was contemplating a run at one point. But this is the reality.
It is the rule. I mean, sure.
Currently.
But it's a pretty clear,
yeah.
You know, you have to be this tall to get on the ride
Correct.
at the amusement park.
Correct. So, and I think it's a tall order to ask people to invest in your political campaign, including financially, when you can't really demonstrate that it's going anywhere.
Would they be able to put him on the ballot? Because I'm reminded now of this controversy with Donald Trump. Some legal scholars think because of his involvement in January 6th, he is technically committed insurrection, and under the terms of one of the Civil War era amendments, someone who does that, if referring to former Confederate soldiers, is not eligible to be president, and the argument is you can't even put Donald Trump's name on the ballot. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's something that is going to prompt, you know, a lot of litigation, and there's going to be arguments for why that doesn't apply in this circumstance and so on. But the age and place of origin requirement is much more straightforward. So if the argument is you're not supposed to put Trump on the ballot for that reason, I would think it would be similarly that you can't put Cenk Uygur's name on the ballot if he's just known to be not born in America.
I think that's right. And look, a lot of candidates have gotten criticized.
So now everybody's really talking about the legal issue involving Cenk actually running for president. And it's the fact that he is not a natural born citizen. Now, he is a citizen, but he's not a natural born citizen. So here is Cenk essentially explaining why he believes he can run for president, even though the Constitution limits that particular office to natural born citizens. So before we get into Cenk's explanation, let me explain to you what a natural born citizen in the United States means. That means when you are born out of the womb, you are automatically a U.S. citizen. Now that can happen a couple of ways. Number one, you can be born on U.S. soil. So if you're born in New York, Texas, Alabama, you are a citizen by birthright. You're a natural born citizen. Now it doesn't even matter what country you came from, right? So if your mom came from Mexico, she makes it across the border and goes to a hospital in Texas and gives birth, that baby, by law, is a natural born U.S. citizen because by birth, they are granted citizenship. The second way that can happen is if you're born to American citizen parents. So if both your parents are American citizens and you're born in France, then by birthright, you are an American citizen. Now, this recently came up with Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz was born in Canada to two U.S. citizen parents. So here is Ted Cruz explaining why he is a natural born citizen.
The law under the Constitution and federal law has been clear from the very first days of the Republic. The child of a U.S. citizen born abroad is a natural-born citizen. What the Constitution requires is for anyone to be president, they have to be a natural-born citizen. So if you or I travel abroad and we have a child overseas, that child is a U.S. citizen by virtue of birth. That's true if U.S. service members are traveling abroad, if they're defending this country. That's why John McCain was a natural-born citizen, even though he was born in Panama, because his parents were U.S. citizens. That's why George Romney, Mitt Romney's dad, was a natural-born citizen, even though he was born in Mexico when his parents were Mormon missionaries. And so the law is straightforward. Indeed, the very first Congress, which consisted of many of the framers of the Constitution, the authors of the Constitution, wrote the very first laws on citizenship. And they explicitly defined the child of a U.S. citizen born abroad as a natural-born citizen. Now, my mother was born in Wilmington, Delaware. She is a natural-born citizen. I was born in Canada, as you have heard by now.
I've heard that.
But I was a citizen by birth by virtue of my mother's citizenship, so I've never been naturalized. I've never breathed a breath of air on this planet when I was not a U.S. citizen. It was the act of being born that made me a U.S. citizen. So under the law, the question is clear.
Now, in 2003, the Arnold Amendment was proposed. And this was because Republicans wanted to allow Arnold Schwarzenegger to be able to run for president. But he, just like Cenk, was not a natural-born citizen. He immigrated here as a child, so for the first, I forget how many years of his life, he wasn't a U.S. citizen. So Orrin Hatch proposed an amendment to change the requirement that presidents must be natural-born U.S. citizens. And this is how it went.
I think quite wrongly.
In 2003, Republican Senator Orrin Hatch actually proposed an amendment to repeal the natural-born citizen clause, suggesting instead that anyone who had been a citizen of the U.S. for at least 20 years could run for president. It was nicknamed the Arnold Amendment, and largely seen as an attempt to make California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, a native Austrian, eligible for the White House. But public support for the amendment was bleak. At the time, 70% of Americans opposed allowing U.S. citizens native to a foreign country to be elected president. Hearings were held, but ultimately, Hatch's amendment went nowhere.
I think the argument is simple for removing the natural-born citizen requirement, which is that we shouldn't discriminate against people based on where they were born or who their parents are. We readily accept this in almost every other area of government policy, including even for eligibility to every other high office, like Justice of the Supreme Court, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Governor of a state, and so forth.
Okay, so now that you know that Cenk Uygur is not a natural-born citizen and is not eligible based on all the case law and everything that we can find, he's going to explain how he is eligible and that everything that we've known is wrong.
For president and challenging President Joe Biden in the primary. So, Cenk, the big issue, the big obstacle kind of standing in your way is the fact that you were born in Turkey, you immigrated to the United States at 8 years old, you are a naturalized citizen, but my understanding is that only US-born citizens can run for president. You disagree with that.
It's
Why?
absurd. But none of that matters. The only thing that matters is the case law. And the Supreme Court has already ruled in Schneider v. Rusk. I asked you guys if you would do graphics. Do you have those graphics or no?
We do, yeah, let's put them up.
And I wanted to show you guys this so you can see it with your own eyes. And thank you for humoring me on that. And so this is from a law review article in University of Illinois. And it shows you definitively that Schneider v. Rusk has already decided this issue. So they had an issue that came up where naturalized citizens were being treated different than natural born citizens. So here's what the court wrote. This is the Supreme Court in that case. The statute proceeds on the impermissible assumption that naturalized citizens as a class are less reliable and bear less allegiance to this country than do the native born. This is an assumption that is impossible for us to make. Moreover, while the Fifth Amendment contains no equal protection clause, it does forbid discrimination that is so unjustifiable as to be violative of due process. A native born citizen is free to reside abroad indefinitely without suffering loss of citizenship. The discrimination aimed at naturalized citizens drastically limits their rights to live and work abroad in a way that other citizens may. It creates indeed a second-class citizenship. So the Supreme Court ruled it is unconstitutional to discriminate against naturalized citizens. This issue is actually already settled, just no one knows it. So I'm going to try to get this albatross off of all of our necks. If you're one of those 25 million Americans, that alone is a reason to go to jankforamerica.com and support what I'm doing.
So this is a law channel. So the first thing I did was I went to the law review article that Jank is citing, and I wanted to see exactly what it said in that space. So I did, and here it is, plain as day. The statute proceeds on the impermissible assumption. So this is exactly what he just read. Even to the part where it said this should be the end of the story. Schneider is clear that treating natural born citizens and naturalized citizens differently is contrary to the Fifth Amendment. Forbidding naturalized citizens from being president or vice president is a form of discrimination that limits their options and treats them as second-class citizens. So my next question is, well, why not just go to the case and see what exactly the court said? Because in a law review article, they're telling us what the court said. But what did the court actually say? And I think this part's gonna surprise you. Okay, so then I went to the actual case. So this is the actual case, Schneider v. Rusk. And in this case, Schneider was a person who was of German descent. They were a native German citizen. They came to the United States, became a citizen, and the law in the United States at the time was that if you went back to your country of origin and stayed there for 3 years or more, you lost your US citizenship. Schneider did that, he lost his US citizenship, and he sued, saying that that violated his rights under the Constitution. The court agreed with Schneider and said, yes, just because he went and lived in Germany for more than 3 years, that doesn't mean he lost his citizenship, just like someone who was a natural born citizen of the United States, if they went to Germany and lived there for more than 3 years, they wouldn't lose their citizenship. So that is what the court said in this case. But there is a huge but here. The court does speak about the requirement of being a natural born citizen as president. Let me show you what they say. On page 3 of the opinion, the court says, we start from the premise that the rights of citizenship of the native born and of the naturalized person are of the same dignity and are coextensive, meaning you have exactly the same rights. If you're naturalized or if you're a natural born citizen, it means you're equal. But they name one distinction. Again, this is the court saying there's only one distinction. Here it is. The only difference drawn by the Constitution is that only the natural born citizen is eligible to be president. Article 2, Section 1. So his whole argument that depends on this case, he says this case changes Article 2, Section 1, allowing the naturalized citizen to become president. But in direct conflict with his reasoning, the court says clearly here that the only difference drawn in the Constitution is that only the natural born citizen is eligible to be president. So the court carves out the eligibility of being president as constitutional, but in every other way they have to be treated the same. And this is why you read the case and not only just rely on the law review article, because in the case itself it says that the only difference is that you can't be president, but you can do everything else. So just to be clear, Cenk cannot be president of the United States. It's black letter law. In the case that he actually even cites, it says that. Now, let me know in the comment section where I'm wrong. Let me know if you think I am totally off with this, because it seems like he read the law review article and said, this is drop dead. I have case law. It fully supports me. This is the law of the land.
This issue is actually already settled. Just no one knows it. So I'm gonna try to get this albatross off of all of our necks.
But the problem is he didn't read the case. I'll see you next time.